Good evening, everybody. It's live here from Germany at 6 p.m. And tonight I will be doing a solo regarding what is oxalates and how do it affect the body. So unfortunately, our guest could not attend this morning for the live. She let me know that she was sick. So I decided I will present the information or the research to you by myself, because I feel it's an important topic, specifically in the health and wellness world, where we absolutely ingest so much of these foods that can absolutely negative influence our bodies. So let's dive in. I have a couple of questions and answers that I'll just read through just to make it easy for everybody, specifically for myself, to just follow and make sure we get through everything. Okay, so what is oxalates? Oxalate is an organic acid that is found in plants. So oxalic acid or acid salts is the end product of metabolism when glycine, glyoxalate, and ascorbic acid is metabolized. So that is the end product. And oxalates are very sharp crystals that form. They are like shredded glass that fills up the body. And if you have specific conditions or gut disorders, this can really absorb into the body and cause a lot of trouble. So oxalates damages the mitochondria and causes a lot of inflammation in the body. It is an oxidizing molecule. So what is the positives of oxalates? So what is the purpose of oxalates? So in plants, the positive role of oxalates includes regulating calcium homeostasis, photosynthesis, post-harvest quality, it protects the plant, and it helps the plant with metal detoxification. And in humans, however, one of the potassium oxalates are used as a chelating agent. Which means it binds to minerals, and specifically in this case, heavy metals, to detoxify the body. But this is specific potassium oxalates. This is not just regular oxalate. This is oxalate bind with potassium. Okay, so does oxalates have a purpose in the human body? Well, technically they do not have a purpose in the human body. However, there are specific gut bacteria that do degrade oxalates, and they gain energy from these oxalates. So it's like kind of food for these gut bacteria. So even though they don't benefit us, they do benefit some of the microbes. So it produces energy for the microbes. So the specific gut microbiome, that gut bacteria that we need to degrade oxalates, is called Allobacter formigenes. So these specific strain of bacteria the sole purpose of it is to degrade oxalates. But there are other gut microbes as well, very familiar ones, that is also capable of degrading oxalates. It's not their sole purpose, they have multiple purposes, but they are very efficient in degrading oxalates as well. And the specific ones are Lactobacillus acidophilus and Lactobacillus gasseri. Gasseri is the most preferred one because it can break down oxalates up to 75%. And this is really great because previously they didn't know that this bacteria can also degrade oxalates, because they thought that only Allobacter formigenes is the one that can degrade oxalates. So it is really good because Allobacter formigenes, you cannot get it in supplement form, but the Lactobacillus strains is widely available in supplements and can really benefit us to help break down these oxalates that is formed in our bodies through these foods from oxalic acid. So what factors play a role in oxalate buildup in the body and can end up in oxalate toxicity? So genetically, there is a liver enzyme, the alanine glyoxylate aminotransferase, which are responsible for primary hyperoxaluria type 1 if you have a genetic mutation of this gene. And then there's other genetic components as well that can cause buildup of toxins, oxalates to a toxic level. And this will include the MTHFR gene mutation. So there's multiple MTHFR gene mutations, but the MTHFR is mostly based on folate. And when we have a mutation in the MTHFR genes, it can cause depletion of vitamin B6. And vitamin B6 is extremely important to help clear out oxalates from the body. So the liver makes glutathione. Glutathione is our master antioxidant. So wherever there's inflammation in the body, whatever needs to be cleared out, detoxification, whatever, we need glutathione. Now, in this process, the body needs cysteine. And the enzymes which produce cysteine is B6 dependent. So B6 is a cofactor for these enzymes within this metabolic process. And when the body's demand for glutathione is high, we become deficient in vitamin B6. And when we are deficient in B6, the liver cannot clear out glyoxalate, which then will cause oxalates to build up in the body. And like I said, this is something that we don't want, because oxalates are like glass, shredded glass within the body. And it deposits in multiple areas and multiple organs and can cause a lot of damage and pain. It actually is related to multiple diseases as well, which we'll have a look at soon. So when oxalates increase, we will have a lot of inflammation in the body. And it's also an oxidizing molecule. So glutathione is an antioxidant, but oxalates is oxidizing. So the antioxidant glutathione is needed to reduce the oxidative stress from oxalates. So let's look at a couple of factors that can also contribute. We looked at the genetic factors. Let's look at some environmental factors. So mold and mycotoxins is a factor. And the reason why these is because these mycotoxins can produce their own oxalates within the gut. And when we look at mold, we can see that mold specifically deplete vitamin A, which is essential in clearing oxalates. Gut health is extremely important, and there's multiple things that contribute to oxalate buildup in the body regarding gut health. So oxalates are bound to minerals. It's a compound which automatically binds to minerals. So this is why people can so easily become mineral depleted even when you have a healthy diet, because all these healthy foods are rich in oxalates. So especially calcium and magnesium, and it is supposed to be excreted through the feces and in the urine, the oxalates. They are supposed to be excreted in the feces and the urine, but they need to be bound with calcium and magnesium. So if the gut has any disorder, it will increase the oxalate absorption into the bloodstream, where oxalate crystals will then deposit, and the organ and especially weak areas in the body where there's either inflammation, infection, or injury, these oxalate crystals will accumulate in those areas first. Then gluten sensitivity. When it comes to gut health, gluten sensitivity can increase oxalate absorption because of how it affects our fat digestion. We need to be able to properly digest and absorb our fats in order to not have fat-soluble vitamin deficiencies. But also, when we don't absorb the fats, we have all this fat that is in the gut, the intestines. And then the fat binds to calcium. And when the fat binds to the calcium is not freely available to bind to the oxalate so that you can excrete it easier. So once the fat binds to the calcium, your body is more prone to absorb the oxalate. So this is why gluten sensitivity can play a big role in oxalate absorption. Gut hyperpermeability, which is known as leaky gut. This is just plain common sense, because once you have a leaky gut, then these oxalates just directly enters into the bloodstream. And once it enters into the bloodstream, it goes and deposits into organs and tissues and wherever there's weak spots. So to have a good, healthy gut structure is very important, so that we can excrete the oxalates once they bind in the gut with minerals. But when we have a leaky gut, these oxalates will immediately enter into the bloodstream, and this is what we don't want. So gut hyperpermeability is something that we absolutely need to address in order to avoid these oxalate from absorbing. Then low stomach acid. Low stomach acid affects oxalate overload, because we need strong stomach acid to break down our food, to release the nutrients. But if we don't have strong stomach acid, we also can get dysbiosis, meaning imbalance in the gut microbiome. So then we can have too much bad bacteria compared to good bacteria, because the stomach acid is supposed to kill all these organisms. It's supposed to disinfect our food from these microorganisms that comes in through the food, which then can overpopulate in the gut, which will then cause gut inflammation and leaky gut. That's where that will lead. Gallbladder dysfunction. This is very important. Like I said earlier, that we need the fats. This is where the gallbladder comes in. So once there's gallbladder dysfunction, we will either have sluggish bile or gallstones. And once we have sluggish bile and gallstones, we cannot release sufficient bile into the intestines, where the bile will then go and break down the fats so that we can absorb the fats. So, and if we cannot absorb the fats properly, then once again the fat will bind to the calcium that is in the gut, and then the oxalates are free, and then it gets too much gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and then it doesn't get excreted as it should. So gallbladder dysfunction is something absolutely that needs to be addressed. And then yeast overgrowth. Like I said, that mycotoxins can produce their own oxalates, and this is specifically focused on the yeast, like candida. If you have like a candida overgrowth, candida itself can produce its own oxalates within the body. So when these mycotoxins, this yeast produces its extra amount of oxalates, then apart from the food intake, which is high oxalate, your body is overproducing oxalates in itself. And SIBO is very well known for creating a leaky gut, because it causes gut inflammation, and then it causes leaky gut. And once you have gut inflammation, you cannot absorb nutrients, you cannot absorb your minerals, you cannot absorb your vitamins. So gut imbalances, yeast overgrowth needs to be addressed in order to reduce oxalate absorption. Okay, and then nutritional deficiencies. Poor gut health creates nutritional deficiencies, like I just mentioned. Once there's inflammation, you cannot absorb your nutrients from the food. So poor gut health creates nutritional deficiencies, which are necessary to eliminate oxalates. And some of the most common nutritional deficiencies that we see, which is necessary to avoid oxalic acid buildup, or these oxalates to build up in the body, is vitamin B6. Vitamin B6, vitamin A, and minerals like calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, and potassium. Those are some of the most important nutrient deficiencies, which puts us at risk for greater absorption of oxalates. Right, let's see. Food intolerances. So these are all gut-related conditions that we need to look at in order to reduce oxalate absorption. So food intolerances. Food intolerances like dairy, gluten, whatever. If you are sensitive to anything, it could be a blueberry, it could be anything that your body is sensitive to. Once you consume these foods and they cause inflammation in the gut, like I said, you cannot then absorb your nutrients, and then you cannot excrete the oxalates efficiently. So your body absorbs more oxalates than it needs to, and it won't be able to excrete it. So that is for food intolerances, because it causes gut inflammation, which then leads to nutritional deficiencies and leaky gut. A couple of other factors that contribute to oxalate overload is medications. Medications like non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatories are inflammatory to the gut. It causes your stomach to bleed, it causes your intestines to bleed. So it's very inflammatory to the gut if you use a lot of it all the time. So do use it sparingly. And then medications like antibiotics. Antibiotics, we all know it kills off the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So if you are somebody that is always using antibiotics, you are killing off all these good bacteria which your body needs in order to degrade oxalates. So reduce non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Try as little as possible, only when it's life-threatening, to use antibiotics. And then there are some blood pressure medications, especially the ARB, that can also increase oxalate absorption. Then there is chloride and fluoride in water, because they act like antibiotics. So they damage your microbiome. So when your microbiome is damaged, then you don't have these gut microbes to degrade oxalates. Then there's the GMOs and the pesticides. Same story. They are inflammatory. They kill off the microbes. I mean, it's a pesticide is basically like an antibiotic. It just kills whatever comes in front of it. So it damages the gut, and it kills the microbiome. Okay, and then there is a high oxalate diet. Now, what does a high oxalate diet look like? It looks like a healthy diet. It looks like a lot of spinach, a lot of kale, a lot of sweet potato and potatoes, and all the foods that you can imagine on your list that is healthy is most likely high in oxalates. Blueberries, however, is low oxalate, but a raspberry is a very high oxalate. So your berries are mostly low oxalate, but raspberries are high oxalates. Then high doses of vitamin C. Vitamin C, when vitamin C is metabolized, it also turns some of it into oxalates. So high doses of vitamin C for people that have oxalate toxicity, it can make you feel really sick. But this is more common with intravenous vitamin C, not so much with the oral vitamin C. So if you are somebody that goes for intravenous vitamin C, it will add to your oxalate load in the body. Okay, and then nutrient deficiencies caused by oxalates is your minerals. Like I said earlier, your calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron, and potassium. These minerals tend to get depleted by oxalates because they bind to the oxalate, and then it's excreted in the feces or in the urine. So it reduces your minerals. And then vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 is depleted because of the demand the oxalates create during the process of producing glutathione. So in this whole process of making glutathione in the liver, your body needs vitamin B6 as a cofactor for the enzymes that breaks down the cysteine and all of that in order to make the glutathione. And the more inflammation you have in your body, the more oxidative stress that you have in the body, the bigger the need is for the liver to produce glutathione. And I also want to mention, when it comes to the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, they do reduce glutathione. So do be careful, because we need glutathione to reduce inflammation in our bodies. It's an essential antioxidant in the body. It's our master antioxidant. Okay, so what are the signs and the symptoms or the diseases that are connected to oxalate toxicity? There is a whole list. There's no way I'll be ever able to cover all of these, because oxalate toxicity can touch every organ in the body, every system. It does a lot of damage. So I'm just going to give you a couple, and I'll go you through a book that I have that lists multiple different system types and the diseases connected to that. So people that is sensitive to sulfur is most likely due to oxalate overload. Sulfur is a mineral found especially in fish and legumes, nuts and seeds, and is necessary. We need sulfur. It's necessary for the transsulfuration pathway that happens in the liver. So salicylate intolerance, which is a plant chemical, if you have this intolerance, then it's most likely due to oxalate overload in the body. Histamine intolerance, we have discussed it in the previous talk. Histamine intolerance, but histamine is a chemical, especially in fermented or aged foods. Now, your body makes it itself as well, but when it comes through food, it is usually aged or fermented foods where you will find histamine. And then mast cell activation syndrome. Okay, so now let's quickly look. It's a book from Sally Norton, Toxic Superfood. She's the one who really shed light on oxalate overload and oxalate toxicity and the foods that is creating this toxic environment within our bodies, leading to a lot of disorders and sicknesses and diseases that people are experiencing. So I'm going to read through the list that she gave here. So this is according to systems. So when it comes to the digestive system, the issues and the mystery syndromes is irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease, gastric reflux, rectal or bowel function problems. When it comes to metabolic or glandular system, we'll get any glands, their function is suppressed. This is like your thyroid gland. When your function of your thyroid gland is suppressed, it can be due to oxalate. So hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism can all be due to oxalate overload or oxalate toxicity. Liver function issues, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, which is also insulin resistance, poor resistance to infections, systemic acidosis, mitochondrial dysfunction, because the oxalates damages the mitochondria, cystic breasts. And when it comes to the immune system, it's anything with the itis. So autoimmune disorders like allergies, asthma, fibrosis, hypersensitivities, mast cell activation. Cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, vasculitis, arteritis, Raynaud syndrome. And then brain, it is pain, burning, oral sensitivity, poor sleep, so insomnia, night waking up, headaches, migraines, and even autism. In the joints, muscles, bones, and teeth, you'll find arthritis, gout, osteopenia, fibromyalgia, excessive tooth tartar, jaw pain, jaw popping, TMJ, carpal tunnel, gum disease. Okay, when it comes to the skin, we'll get lichen sclerosis, scleroderma, dermatomyositis, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and then the eye, it is styes and deposits. Now, there is another thing that I know, that if you get like severe pain in your eyes, that is also due to it. So it's like this sharp pain in the eyes can also be due to oxalates. And in the ears, it's tinnitus, vertigo, and Meniere syndrome. In the pelvic area, it's genital pain, vulvodynia, interstitial cystitis, and sexual dysfunction. In the urinary tract, kidney stones, kidney calcifications, excessive urinary frequency, burning, cystitis, like I said, interstitial cystitis, burning of the bladder, and urethra pain. So these are some of these disorders that are connected to oxalate toxicity or oxalate overload. So anybody that has these conditions, they are all very painful, irritating conditions, and that it suppresses the function of whatever organ it affects. Okay, so let's have a look. What test can people do to see if they store too many oxalates? The most common test that people do is an organic acid test. So this is an organic acid. So the best way for you to find out if your body stores too much oxalates is an organic acid test. It's also called an OAT test, O-A-T. So an OAT test or an organic acid test is how you'll find out if your body stores too much oxalates. And then how can we address and reduce oxalates? Well, number one will be through diet, because most of the oxalates that is in the body comes in through diet. So we can go on a low oxalate diet. This will help the body to release the stored oxalates and will encourage what is called oxalate dumping. More on that soon. Increase calcium, both through food and supplementation to bind the oxalates which have been consumed. Drink sufficient amounts of water to dilute the concentration of oxalates in the urine to avoid kidney stone formation. And boil foods rich in oxalates and discard the water. This can reduce oxalate content up to 85% in some foods. Okay, and then heal the gut. So to reduce oxalate absorption, you have to focus on gut health. This includes the liver, the gallbladder, and the intestines. You have to remove the inflammatory substances and addressing food intolerances. Reducing medications like NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, which is known to damage the gut and reduce glutathione. So addressing any gut dysbiosis, which is contributing to gut disorders. And then lastly, on how we can address and reduce oxalates is address nutrient deficiencies. You have to increase your magnesium, your calcium, your potassium, your zinc, your iron, your B vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin D, and vitamin E. These will all help your body and protect your body from storing too much oxalates. Your body is going to store some oxalates, but you can help your body reduce the oxalate load by making sure that your diet is sufficient. But more than the diet, you have to look at gut health, because all disease comes from the gut, most. That was the old saying. So you have to address nutrient deficiencies, you have to heal the gut, and if you have a toxic overload of oxalates, going on a low oxalate diet can be very beneficial. Now, so what is oxalate dumping? Oxalate dumping is the process your body goes through by releasing the stored oxalates. And these can be released through the skin, it can be released through the urine, and it can be released through stool, poop, whatever you want to call it. So feces. So when your body is dumping oxalates, it will exit the body through either the skin, either the urine, or either the feces. Now, is oxalate dumping safe? And how can we do it properly? All right, so oxalate dumping can be dangerous, especially when it's done too fast. So those crystals, which are like sharp glass can damage tissues and organs as they are released. So when we want to reduce this toxic overload of oxalates, we have to do it slowly and mindfully. So oxalate dumping, like I said, can be dangerous. So it is not advised to immediately start a low oxalate diet, but to slowly reduce oxalate intake so that the body will start to slowly release stored oxalates. It is advised to reduce your oxalate-rich foods by 5 to 10% only a week. And for some people, this can even be too fast. So you have to go according to what you can manage. And when the body starts dumping really fast, what a lot of people do to reduce the symptoms is just to increase a little bit of oxalates again, just to tell your body, okay, just stop a little bit to dump these oxalates, and then you can continue again. And then just go with what is safe and adequate for your body. Some people, they experience a lot of pain and other symptoms once they start dumping too fast. And this can be very dangerous because you can harm blood vessels, you can harm organs, you can harm a lot of things in your body when you are starting to dump these crystal-like, glass-like structures in your body. So what some people do when they start dumping and they want to just slow it down, they just eat a little bit of dark chocolate. Okay, so other ways you can support your body to dump safely is to ensure that you have adequate calcium alongside your meals. And if you think of spinach that is high in calcium, all the calcium that is in the spinach binds to the oxalate. It is not an available calcium to eat. So you have to take adequate amount of calcium alongside your oxalate-rich foods to make sure that your body can bind these oxalates so that it can be excreted and not absorbed through the gut. So when you take calcium with your meals, make sure that you have 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium with a high oxalate meal, so that there's sufficient amounts that can bind to these oxalates. And when it comes to magnesium, 600 to 800 milligrams per day that you can divide up in your meals to make sure that you have sufficient amounts of magnesium. The other ways that you can support your body to bind these oxalates and excrete them is through using glucosamine and chondroitin. These bind oxalates as well, which is not why, but this is probably why it's also effective for joint pain. So this is medications that are used to help people with arthritis and joint pains and stuff. So glucosamine and chondroitin are both safe, and it also binds oxalates and helps the body excrete them. Sodium citrate, this helps to actually dissolve oxalate crystals. And then probiotics. Lactobacillus gasseri, this is the strain of bacteria that is the most effective form of lactobacillus to degrade oxalates. And unfortunately, the Allobacter formagenes are not available as a supplement. So what we've seen through all of this, I mean, I didn't really discuss which foods are high in oxalates, but what we see is that plant foods contain this organic acid chemical, which turns into oxalates, but they are toxic to the body, and we need to prevent absorption, hyperabsorption of these oxalates. And the way we prevent this hyperabsorption of oxalates is through making sure that we have sufficient calcium, sufficient magnesium in the diet so that it can bind to the oxalates and be excreted through the feces and the urine. But when it comes to urine, you have to make sure that you drink adequate amounts of water to dilute the concentration of the urine, because a lot of kidney stones are formed because the urine is too concentrated, and then the amount of oxalates in the urine is just too much. So it is very important to make sure that you drink a lot of liquids. that you stay well hydrated, that you increase your minerals, that you increase your B vitamins, and make sure that you have sufficient amounts of vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin K, because all of these help your body to not hyperabsorb, and make sure that your gut is healthy, make sure that you have sufficient gut bacteria. Don't overuse medications, don't overuse antibiotics. Don't just run to an antibiotic for anything, rather use garlic or any other natural antibiotics, which doesn't become antibiotic resistant. These will also feed your gut microbiome. So, to summarize, oxalates are toxic, they are harmful to the body, yet they have a purpose in nature. They have a purpose to some of the microbiome that we have by producing them energy, but to us as the host, they are very toxic and harmful. So I hope this can give you a good overview of what oxalates is and what they do to the body. So make sure that you take care of your health, and make sure that if you start a low oxalate diet, that you dump slowly and carefully so that you will not do any more harm. So I hope this was informative. And if anybody is struggling with any of the symptoms and diseases that I've mentioned, then just know that oxalates could contribute to whatever you are facing. Well, anyway, so that is what I have for tonight. Unfortunately, I had to do this alone. Like I said, the guest for tonight was sick and she couldn't join us. So this is what I could offer you for tonight. Well, have a lovely evening. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.